Friday, December 13th, 2024. We welcome you into the Football Friday edition of the Lunch Break KDUS AM 1060. We've got you for the next 2 hours here on the show. A lot of football to unpack, a lot of football to get you ready for this weekend. It is Friday the 13th. I don't necessarily subscribe to the moniker of Friday the 13th. I don't conduct myself any differently on Friday the 13th. I don't worry about black hats or ladders or anything that you would associate with Friday the 13th and bad things happening. I have never associated anything. I just live my life. It's just a Friday. It's a football Friday. We got a show to do, but it is Friday the 13th, and maybe there are some people out there who maybe are a little scared. I was a little scared watching that football game last night. That is today's Daily Special.
Time for our top story of the day. It's the Daily Special.
Oof, talk about a horror show. That game last night was something. The Rams defeat the 49ers. They move to 8-6. They put the pressure on the Seattle Seahawks this Sunday. They, I think, all but put an end to the 49ers season. We've got players leaving the game in the middle of the third quarter. But more importantly than any of that stuff, and we will get to it all here because I think the NFC West is completely up for grabs. The Rams have done a great job solidifying their spot as a wild card team. If they aren't going to win the division, I think the 49ers are toast. I think they're cooked. We can have that conversation, but where we start today's show is the most important thing of the show because we've got 3 points in our back pocket because we told you that the Rams were going to win the football game last night. We said, give us the Rams plus the 3. We liked this matchup for the Rams. It was not the trap of playing a short week Thursday road game. They were in California. It was not that long of a travel. They are playing some of their best football as of late. I did not buy in to what we saw from the 49ers against the Bears just a week ago because it is the Bears. That's exactly how that slop fest of a game played out last night. It was raining. That game reminded me a little bit of, remember the Super Bowl between the Rams and the Patriots? That was, some people said it was a defensive masterclass between both sides. And then there were other people, I put myself into this group, that said it was the worst football game I've ever seen in my life. Worst Super Bowl of all time. Was not enjoyable, was not entertaining, was not the chess match that everybody thought it was. Last night, I kind of got that feel again, and not just because the Rams were involved, although that obviously probably helped the comparison a little bit, but you just had two teams struggle to do anything, two teams that struggled in the weather, and I think two teams that are going in polar opposite directions. Let's first start with this Rams team, because when we look at the playoff picture right now in the NFL, I think all of our conversations are centered around the Lions, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, the upper echelon of the upper echelon. The 4 teams that right now you would say are in the tier of Super Bowl contenders, Super Bowl favorites. Those 4 teams are playing their best football right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are just what the Kansas City Chiefs are. But those 4 teams, I think you would put in a bucket of that team can win a Super Bowl. Then there are teams on the outside of that group. The Pittsburgh Steelers are probably in this group. The Minnesota Vikings are probably in this group. The Baltimore Ravens are in this group. Those teams, the teams that you can see the path, you can see how they get there, but you just don't have enough yet. You're just not sure if the Pittsburgh Steelers are a Super Bowl caliber team. Yeah, the Vikings are 11-2, but are you sure you trust Sam Darnold in a playoff game? The Baltimore Ravens, most dynamic offense in football. When everything is clicking, when they are playing their top brand of football, they are almost unbeatable. But more often than I think we're all comfortable with, you get a clunker from them. You get them stinking up the joint. You got that tier. And then you've got the teams in a tier of, I don't know if I'd want to face them in the postseason. I don't think they're championship caliber. I don't think they're Lions, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills. And I don't think they belong in that other group, but could I see them getting hot? Could I see them going on a run? Guess what? I think that Rams team we saw last night falls into that group. They have a lot of the things that you would like to have if you're going to pick a team. If you asked me today, Chris, you got to pick one team that's not a top 3 seed in either conference to go to the Super Bowl. The Rams might be at the top of the list. They might be in front of the Green Bay Packers. They might be in front of the Minnesota Vikings, for me. They have a coach, been there, done that. By the way, been there, done that on both sides of the coin. winning a Super Bowl, losing a Super Bowl, dealing with that heartbreak, dealing with all of the ebbs and flows that come with the postseason, a Super Bowl winning, Super Bowl caliber quarterback. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls in New York, not because the Giants were the best team, but because they got hot at the right time. If Matt Stafford gets hot at the right time with the Los Angeles Rams, is anybody going to pick against Sean McVay and the coaching job that he's able to do? I know they don't have the defense, and I know they have question marks. But I think after what we've seen last night, they're 8-6. They've firmly put themselves in that wild card spot, that last wild card spot in the NFC. They've put the pressure on the Seahawks this Sunday, a Seahawks loss. They're now tied for the division. The Rams might be a problem. The Rams might be a team that those top seeds in the NFC, they don't want to draw them. Right now, they're the 7 seed, I believe, in the NFC. They would draw the 2 seed in the wild card round. If you're the Eagles, do you really want to draw? They would draw the Commanders. Okay, so this is how this would work. It would be the Lions would get the bye. You would get 4 versus 5, so you would get Tampa versus Minnesota. You would get Seattle versus Washington. Or no, Seattle versus Green Bay and Philly versus Washington. So the Rams have put pressure on Washington for that last wild card spot in the NFC. I had LA in. They're actually just on the outside looking in. But I think this team might become a problem. Because if Washington falters and they slip up to 8-6, or LA is able to catch Seattle, a Seattle loss opens the door for the division. I'm not sure if LA is a team that I want to draw. If LA is able to come back and catch the Seahawks, they now are the 3 seed. They would play the Packers in the first round. I wouldn't want to face them if I'm the Packers. I wouldn't want to face the Rams. So this team's a problem, and this team's putting pressure on Washington, on Seattle. They are creating a gap between them and Atlanta and Arizona, who are trying to stay in the mix. So this team might be a problem. If they are able to get in, they have work to do. They are putting themselves in a good spot here down the stretch. And they have all the pressure in the world that they are putting on Seattle to keep pace. And Seattle has a brutal schedule here the next couple of weeks. We mentioned yesterday all the tiebreakers that there are in the NFC that could play out in 4-way ties and just all of the chaos that could ensue from that. Seattle plays the Packers, the Vikings the next 2 weeks. The Packers need every win they can get because if you're the Rams, you look at this game, you just don't want to tie. Anybody losing this game is good for you. Seattle losing this game for you, it evens things up. You have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks because you beat them earlier, so you would then be de facto in first place. If the Packers lose, they then drop to 5 losses. It opens up another spot that you're just 1 game behind. I don't know. Last night I watched this game, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't good football. But after beating the Bills last week, you beat the 49ers this week, you basically end their season. You've put yourself in a position of, I wouldn't want to play you if I saw the Rams in the playoffs. Wouldn't want to do it. And so if they're able to sneak in, and it's not really sneaking in, a lot of pathways for them at this point, I think they would be a problem. The 49ers, I mean, they're cooked. And they got to have a conversation about paying Brock Purdy, and if that's something they want to sign up for, and giving him what the market rate is for quarterbacks right now while he's having a bad year. I know they've had injuries across the board, but they've taken a step back offensively. Deebo Samuel hasn't looked great. George Kittle's getting older. They just look like a team that needs a reset, needs a retool, and I just don't know if paying Brock Purdy what he is going to command on the open market is the right way to do that retool. I think it limits you in what you're able to do. And then, I mean, put that to the side. You got players refusing to play. You've got Devondre Campbell not entering the game after being asked to do so after Dre Greenlaw and D. Winters were dealing with injuries. What does that say about the culture of your building? You got players not wanting to play. And this isn't a shot at Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a great head coach. But I think it just goes to show you that building is just rocky right now. They're not used to being in this spot. And you've got a player in Devondre Campbell who said no. And not only did he say no, he left the field. He walked to the locker room. You've got players after the game. You got George Kittle, quote, "It's one player making a selfish decision. I've never been around anybody that's ever done that, and I hope I'm never around anybody who does that again," end quote. That's a teammate he's talking about. He's hoping that it's an ex-teammate. How often do you see players go to the podium and call out other players? good on George Kittle. It's warranted. Because you know what? When you go to the podium and you defend your teammates, it's because you believe they're worth defending. Devondre Campbell, his actions, not worth defending. Deserves to get blasted. Deserves for George Kittle to say, I don't want that guy on my team. Football is a very violent sport. It is a very in the trenches, we're going to go to war together type of sport. You got to be willing to look at the guy to your left and to your right and say, I'm going to do everything in my power for you. You need to do everything in your power for me. And last night, the 49ers had one guy on their team who looked at the rest of his teammates and said, I'm good. I'm good. Just unacceptable. Now, I know there were some players that didn't want to speak. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa didn't want to say anything. But you had George Kittle, Jartavius Ward also talked, and that's bad news. And they're 6-8 now. They have fallen to the back of the pack in the NFC West, and I think it's over. I think this year, just not their year. Injuries, underperformance from their offense, these shenanigans, it's just not going very well for this organization. And sometimes you have years like that where you just have to just write it off. And it's unfortunate, but that's just where they are, because losing that game last night, I thought they were done after losing to the Bills the way that they did, but they bounced back. They beat the Bears at home, opened up a path, and I think after last night, they are cooked, and they're going to now go into an offseason needing to retool and rebuild this roster. Coming up on the other side, despite what they need to replace, and it's a lot, do the Diamondbacks still have a top 10 offense? That's next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060. Quick timeout from the football. Some baseball news. The Yankees acquiring closer Devin Williams from the Milwaukee Brewers. They're trading Nestor Cortez, left-handed starting pitcher. You might have seen him during the World Series give up that home run, walk-off home run to Freddie Freeman. Infield prospect Caleb Durbin, who was probably going to be the opening day second baseman for the Yankees, depending on how their offense played out. And then they also gave some cash considerations. They paid the Brewers some money, and they gave, I think it was like $7 million what they gave to the Brewers in exchange for Devin Williams. And this is one of the elite closers in all of baseball. Since his debut in 2019, he has a 1.83 ERA in 97 appearances, 68 saves, was the NL Rookie of the Year, a winner in 2020. He won that award after allowing only one earned run in 22 games. And the last time we saw him was giving up that go-ahead 3-run home run to Pete Alonso in Game 3 of the National League Wild Card Series against the New York Mets. But the Yankees pick up one of the elite closers in all of baseball. And I think what I find very interesting here, and I'm going to tie this back into the Diamondbacks' offseason pursuits here in a second, but the Yankees missed on Juan Soto. They came up just short in the pursuit of reacquiring their star outfielder. And in the past, Brian Cashman, when he misses on some big-ticket offensive pieces, he is known to pivot towards pitching because there are two ways that you can build a roster: run creation and run prevention. And when we talk about the Diamondbacks here in a second, they have a run creation problem that they need to fix. They have guys, Christian Walker, Jock Peterson, who are no longer on this team, at least as of this moment. They need to get that production back. They can do so by acquiring more offense to replace that production, or they can lean in towards run prevention, maybe spend the money on a bullpen arm, maybe spend the money on another starter and try to prevent runs, maybe some defensive-minded guys. That's another way to try to recreate what you have on your roster. Brian Cashman signing Max Fried to an 8-year deal, trading for Devin Williams here, reportedly, leaning into the run prevention bucket. Okay, can't get Juan Soto. Maybe I'm striking out on Christian Walker. Maybe the price tag for Kyle Tucker is higher than I'm willing to go. And by the way, Nestor Cortez felt like he could have been a part of these trades. Same thing with Caleb Durbin. So it feels like, and maybe not, maybe there are other bigger pieces that could have been in there, but it felt like these guys could have been names that were invoked in those talks. And so maybe Brian Cashman is striking out in the run creation department. And so he's doing what he has done in the past and going to the run prevention department. And I want to tie this into the original story we were going to talk about with the Diamondbacks, because ESPN, after the winter meeting, so yesterday, they put out a story after everything that we've seen, Juan Soto to the Mets, all the moves that have happened, Tyler O'Neill to the Orioles, everything that's occurred. They ranked the top 10 offenses in Major League Baseball. And I think it might surprise some people that the Diamondbacks, even without Christian Walker and without Jock Peterson, those guys off the roster, they said the Diamondbacks had a top 10 offense. 7th was where their offense ranked on this list. And they said, you know, they do all the good things right. They're athletic. They've got speed. They lack power. They lack that middle-of-the-order bat. And the story pointed out, I'm not sure if this is feasible, but, man, wouldn't Pete Alonso be a great fit in the middle of that lineup to be your Christian Walker replacement and bring you that cleanup hitter, bring you that 40, 50 home run power on a yearly basis? Yeah, it's going to cost you maybe a little bit more than you might be comfortable, but that could be the big splash. So let's tie these two stories together, because I think good general managers can see a market developing or not developing, and they can chart the right course. And I think if Mike Hazen is unable to replace Christian Walker and Jock Peterson, if he is unable to land big-time pieces, Paul Goldschmidt, Carlos Santana to play first base, if he's not unable to bring back Christian Walker, if you're not able to do those things, you got to get creative, right? That's been our big buzzword for the Diamondbacks. But one of the creative ways that you can approach this is maybe you sign another starter. Maybe you're the place that Jack Flaherty lands. Maybe you give Jeff Hoffman a deal. Maybe you go get Tanner Scott and you pay a reliever some big bucks. Maybe you're active in the trade market to acquire a starting pitcher, Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez. Maybe that's the avenue you go. Maybe we're not going to score as many runs as we did a year ago, but we're also going to give up a lot less runs than we did a year ago, so proportionally it'll be the same. That is an approach. It's actually one that I wouldn't mind if they're unable to, and you don't have to answer this question right now. You don't. Christian Walker's still out there. Pete Alonso's still out there. Carlos Santana, Paul Goldschmidt, all the tiered options at first base are still out there. Anthony Santander, still out there if that's a place that the Diamondbacks ultimately want to go. All of these options still exist, so you don't have to change course right this second. But if you're going to change course, I think instead of trying to bargain bin shop for a DH or for a first baseman or for another outfield, I think you might be better suited paying a little bit more and landing a Jeff Hoffman or a Tanner Scott and really dive into the run prevention bucket. Because, yes, we talked on this show how good this offense was a year ago. Best in the National League in runs per game. And if you don't replace Christian Walker or Jock Peterson or don't get similar production, you are going to take a step back in that regard. Now, there are counters to that. Corbin Carroll might not have as bad of a year. And so that's another way to create some runs, and it could balance out. So I wonder if at some point there is a pivot, like the Yankees seem to have been pivoting here, to go into the run prevention game. Sign a defense-first guy for your bench. Sign a handful of relievers, not just one big high-leverage arm. Maybe it's two arms for your bullpen. Maybe you do add another starter to increase the floor of your group. Maybe you trade Jordan Montgomery and you eat half the money just to free up the roster spot. So there are two different ways to build your team. Run creation, run prevention. Mike Hazen has been talking about the run creation bucket, needing to piece back together our offense, needing to replace Christian Walker and Jock Peterson. That has been his approach in the way that he's answered questions. And I wonder if at some point during this journey, if the prices don't match up with what the Diamondbacks are comfortable doing, if Mike Hazen, if he's the good general manager I think he is, he pivots and goes into the run prevention bucket and have a team that has deep starting pitching, that plays really good defense, that has an elite bullpen. And maybe the offense is sluggish. Maybe they're unable to replace Christian Walker and Jock Peterson, so it looks different. But they also don't need to be first in runs per game in the National League. They can drop to 6th or 7th and still win as many games. This was almost a 90-win team a year ago. 89-73 is what this team finished last year. And I could open up the phone lines. I know all of you out there right now are thinking of at least one game that this team gave away last year down the stretch that would have had them in the playoffs and would have gotten them to 90 wins. You can all think of one. That Giant series down the stretch, you can very easily think of a handful, probably anywhere from 5 to 10 games that the Diamondbacks just gave away that would have been the difference. So there are different ways to do this. And you've got a team here that even after all of this, still just one place, one source, said that they still have a top 10 offense. And I think that would surprise some people. But I think you're forgetting that this offense has some talent. Do we expect Corbin Carroll to have the year that he had a year ago? Absolutely not. Ketel Marte, was an MVP candidate for large stretches of last year. 292 average, 36 home runs. You got 30 home runs from Eugenio Suarez. Lourdes Gurriel hit 280 with 18 homers. You have some pieces here. You got to get better at first base. And even if it's a marginal upgrade over Pavin Smith, and it's just a right-handed platoon bat that you pay $5 million, maybe upgrading from the back part of this bullpen, Seth Martinez, Joe Mantiply, Ryan Thompson, Kevin Ginkel, maybe you want to upgrade there. Maybe you want to upgrade from the back part of this bullpen. Because I think right now, Justin Martinez is a lock, AJ Puck is a lock, Kevin Ginkel's probably a lock. I think there are areas where you can upgrade. Seth Martinez, you can upgrade there. You can upgrade from Bryce Jarvis. You can upgrade from Joe Mantiply and Ryan Thompson. You can upgrade there. And so I would be very, very intrigued to see if they do not land the big fish that they might be trying to land. And big fish in this context is re-signing Christian Walker, or signing Paul Goldschmidt, or signing Carlos Santana, or signing an outfielder at a decent amount of money, but not shopping at the top end like Juan Soto got. If they don't get those guys, if they don't fill those needs, I wonder if they lean into the run prevention game. Because last year, starting pitchers in all of baseball, 27th in ERA, 25th in WHIP, 21st in strikeouts per nine, 27th in hits per nine. Their relief pitching, 25th in ERA, 27th in WHIP. You can see where this season got off the rails for this team. Their pitching wasn't consistent enough. And so, yeah, maybe your offense falls from its top spot and its top 5 spots across the board, and now you're maybe just inside the top 10, or you're a middle of the road offense, but you increase the floor of your starting pitching to where you're also middle of the road there. It's a different way to do it. It's a different way to approach it. And I think the beauty of where we're at in this market, the beauty of things being a little bit slow right now, the beauty of things taking their time, is this team can evaluate all of these options. They can look at both paths. So yes, Christian Walker is not currently back on this team. Yes, Jock Peterson is currently not back on this team. But this offense it's not as dire as maybe it seems on the surface, because you know there are replacements coming in some capacity. And I just wonder what bucket Mike Hazen chooses to shop in. I think right now priority is run creation, but I wonder if the run prevention bucket also comes into play. Because you just saw the Yankees, big-time pursuit of Juan Soto, big-time pursuit of Kyle Tucker, and they pivoted, signed Max Fried to an 8-year deal, went out and traded for one of the best closers in baseball. Okay. We're not going to be able to score runs, maybe at the clip that we're used to. And we're still going to try to get better. We still need a first baseman. We still need an outfielder. But you know what? We're going to make sure you can't score on us, because we're going to have a nasty rotation with Garrett Cole, with Carlos Rodon, with Max Fried, with the AL Rookie of the Year, Luis Heel. That's what we're going to do. The Diamondbacks could learn something there and maybe have a similar pivot. Coming up next, we get you ready for the entire slate of action in the NFL. There's a lot of games. We got a lot to do. We will do it next here on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Football Friday edition of the show. We appreciate you joining us here. 480-864-1060 is the phone number for you to join us. You can also hop on the YouTube stream, catch the live video version of the show. I just noticed there's a lot of red in the video. The red microphone light, the red part of the logo, my red hoodie today. It's very red. Very I don't know. It's something very drastic about that. When I looked over to plug the YouTube video version of the show, it is time, and it is one of the best times of the year. Not because we still have football and not because we get to do the NFL look ahead right now, but it is the most fun time of the year because I get to do this right now. I get to hit this music and we get to talk about an entire slate of NFL action where there is nobody on a bye week. That's it. We got everybody in action. Nobody's sitting at home. You got 7 games in the morning. You got 5 in the afternoon. You got 2 on Monday night. It's just beautiful. It is beautiful to scroll to the bottom of the ESPN schedule, which is what we use to go in the right order. And I don't see a thing next to bye. Nobody's on a bye. Everybody's playing this week. I got to be honest with you. There are some teams I wish could stay home this week. But I'm not going to be greedy. I'm going to enjoy all of the football. We start the Chiefs on the road, 4-point favorites as they take on the 3-10 Cleveland Browns. This is one of those games for the Chiefs where I don't know. I'm not sure there is a result in this game that will do anything to change how we feel about the Kansas City Chiefs. They win, they're supposed to win. They win in a variety of the ways that we've seen them win over the last month and a half. You'd be like, yeah, it's just kind of what we're used to. You lose to the Cleveland Browns, who are 3-10. Everyone's gonna be like, see, I told you the Chiefs could be had. I told you the Chiefs aren't as good as their record says. So there is not a result here. Maybe if you blow out the Browns 48-0, maybe that'll make some noise. I think any other result, it does nothing to change how we feel about this is a no-win situation today, or on Sunday, for the Kansas City Chiefs. Nothing they can do. They lose, they're going to get hammered. They win, they're probably not going to cover, they're going to get hammered. So this is a no-win situation. They better win the football game. 4-point favorites on the road against the Browns, but Chiefs-Browns starting us off here on the NFL look ahead. Bengals, 5-8, traveling on the road to take the 3-10 Tennessee Titans on. Cincy, a 5-point favorite on the road. They're coming off of their victory against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night, in which they got some help via a boneheaded special teams play. I know mathematically they're not eliminated. Their path it's almost non-existent. But if they win out, it certainly keeps the door open. They would have to do so against the Tennessee Titans. I know nobody cares, but I'm going to do it anyway. Last night, fantasy playoffs started for me, first round. I had Kyron Williams. I had Juwan Jennings. I did not get the point allocation that I would have liked to have gotten from those two guys. And so just like it has happened most weeks this year, I need a big game from Jamar Chase. He got me 40 points this past Monday. He had a 50-burger on Sunday night a couple of weeks ago. I need one of those big-time performances from Jamar Chase. I think he could do it against the Tennessee Titans. He's been great this year. If the Bengals want to keep their seat, it's so fascinating to me. Joe Burrow, 3,700 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Jamar Chase has almost 100 catches, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. This team's 5-8. Defense has absolutely killed them this year. It's failed them in so many ways. It's just shocking. It's not like they had a major injury on offense, like Joe Burrow missed 6 weeks, and I can understand how they're 5-8. They're just not playing well. The Commanders, 7.5-point favorites when they take on the Saints. It's either going to be Derek Carr or Jake Haener. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be. It's going to be one of those two gentlemen for the New Orleans Saints. It is the Marshawn Lattimore revenge game as he returns to New Orleans for the first time since being traded earlier this season to Washington. Washington trying to hold off the Rams, trying to maybe keep the NFC East in sights with the Eagles. That doesn't feel likely. But they got to win because a loss puts a lot of pressure on them down the stretch. So they are 7.5-point favorites on the road against the Saints. I can't remember. I had to make sure it wasn't a typo. I can't remember the last time I've seen a number this large for an NFL game for a team that's on the road. Producer Dylan, I'm going to ask you to just give me a number here, okay? The Baltimore Ravens are on the road. They're 8-5. They're taking on the New York Giants, who are 2-11. They're 0-7 at home, and they're playing Tommy DeVito at quarterback. I've given you all that information. How many points? I'm going to spoil this part for you. How many points do you think the Baltimore Ravens are favored by? You had to take a guess. How many points do you think the Baltimore Ravens are favored by? You know what? It's close. Baltimore is a 16-point favorite on the road, meaning if you played it at a neutral site, Baltimore would be a 20-point favorite. They would be a 19 or 20-point favorite at a neutral site. Normally, you get the standard 3 at home. Means nothing to Vegas. They say the Giants are 3-score underdogs at home, where they haven't won a game this season. I'll tell you right now, this game, in some capacity, is a part of the Schubert Six. I'm not going to tell you what. I'm not going to tell you how many points. You're going to have to stay tuned to hour number 2 of the program so that you can see where this game is in the Schubert Six. But it is the Ravens minus 16. And the Ravens need this one too. They can't mess around and play a close game against the Giants and leave it up to chance late in the fourth quarter. They need to take care of business. They need to get to 9-5. They need to get out of Dodge with a victory. They need to this needs to be a business trip. Get in, do the job, get out. You cannot mess around with the New York Giants. The Cowboys take on the Panthers. The Panthers, we talked about this earlier in the week, for the first time since week 14 of the 2022 season, were favored. They are still favored as we are doing this show. 3-point favorites at home to the Dallas Cowboys. They have been playing really good football as of late. It has not resulted in victories. They lost to Kansas City. They lost to Tampa. They lost to the Eagles in their last game, but they played all 3 of those games competitive. They tied the Chiefs up late, forced them to drive down the field and kick a field goal. They forced overtime against the Bucs. They were 13-point underdogs against Philly. They kept that within a touchdown. The last 3 weeks, they have played better football. Why? Because their quarterback is playing like the number 1 overall pick that he was a few short years ago in Bryce Young. He is finally starting to showcase the skill set that this team thought they were getting with the number 1 pick. And he is orchestrating key drives late. They're not turning out into wins and good results, but the process is really, really good. And I think big picture, long-term for the Panthers, that means more than a win or a loss. You'd like to see these efforts get rewarded with a victory because they're playing so well. Could be this week against the Dallas Cowboys. The Jets travel on the road. This is the ultimate tank off, folks. You got the 3-10 Jets and the 3-10 Jags. They're just pointing at each other and just seeing who's going to tank harder. Because neither of these teams want to win. You don't want a victory. If you're the Jets, you want to lose out. You want to get as close as you can to those top 2 picks so that you can get one of Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. You want to be in the mix for a quarterback. If you're the Jags, you want to have a top 2 pick so that you can be a kingmaker, so that somebody can trade a king's ransom for you to give up your top pick. You had it before you beat the Titans last week and dropped out of the number 1 spot. So this is the ultimate tank off. That's my analysis for you. I don't care about Aaron Rodgers and Mac. I don't care about any of the players playing in this game. This is a game of who can tank harder. We will see. The Dolphins try to keep their playoff hopes alive. They travel to Houston. Houston, a 3-point favorite at home, taking on the Miami Dolphins. We have talked about the Miami Dolphins and the run that they have been on to re-enter the playoff picture in the AFC. And the reason they've been able to do that is because they have handled their business against the teams that they should handle their business against. Beat the Raiders, beat the Patriots, beat up on the Jets, although you got away with one last week by surviving that game in overtime. The thing they haven't been able to do since Tua has come back, since they've started this stretch, is they haven't had that marquee game. Lost to the Packers on Thanksgiving. This is their chance. You win this game, you get back to 500, but also you beat the Houston Texans, a current team in the playoff picture. And this offense has been really good since Tua has come back. They've been exceptional. They need a marquee victory, I think, to get people like me to buy back in. So that's what this backdrop is for this game. And Houston needs this win as well because they need a marquee victory. And beating the Dolphins will be a lot better than some of the other games on their resume. The Colts and the Broncos. The Colts want to stay in the playoff picture. They need this game. The Broncos, 4-point favorites at home. They just keep on trotting along. They've been excellent at home this year, 4-2 at home. They've been excellent against the spread this year as well. And they are 4-point favorites at home against the Indianapolis Colts. I like the Broncos in this one just because they've just been playing solid football across the board. The Colts are kind of a roller coaster ride, and so I would always lean to the team that has the more stable coaching and the more stable resume, and that is the Broncos. This is your game of the weekend, folks, and it's the same time as the Cardinals. I will be doing some channel switching. Bills, Lions, Ford Field, Detroit. Lions 2.5-point favorites at home. The Bills looking to bounce back after their loss to the Rams. The Lions looking to lock up the NFC North. That is what is at stake. And for the Lions, it's also a very important game because you add the Bills to your ledger this year as you get to 13-1, you're going to be looked at as the Super Bowl favorites. The 1A game of the weekend, Steelers-Eagles. This is a big one. These Steelers, this is a tough stretch for them here. Why getting to 10 wins was so important. I think if you win this one, you erase all the doubts that people have about you. You go into Philly. I know it's not that far of a travel, but you go into Philly and you beat the Philadelphia Eagles and you get to 11-3. You drop them to 11-3 as well. I think we would start to take you and Russell Wilson and everybody seriously there in Pittsburgh. The Eagles 5.5-point favorites in that game. The Bucs will travel to Inglewood to take on the Chargers. The Chargers, the standard 3-point favorites at home. The Bucs need this one, trying to hold off the Falcons. The Chargers need this one, trying to make sure they get one of those wild card spots. They don't want to open the door for Miami. And one of the rare games this weekend where we've got good teams. The afternoon slate filled with them. Bills, Lions, a matchup of two really good teams. Steelers, Eagles, two really good teams. The Bucs and Chargers, two teams above 500. And then we cap it off at night, the Packers, Seahawks. Green Bay, 2.5-point favorites on the road. Packers need this one if they want to potentially keep the 5 seed in play, if they want to chase down the Minnesota Vikings. The Seahawks need this one to hold off the Rams and maybe the Cardinals, depending on how they play earlier in the day against the Patriots. A loss by the Seahawks to 8-6, it just compresses it again. It makes it tighter in the NFC West again. And then you've got 2 Monday night games, which we will get to a little bit later on here in the show, and we will obviously break them down on Monday. But that is your NFL look ahead for week 15. Coming up on the other side, the answers for the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday are pretty simple. I'll tell you what they are next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the lunch break, KDUS AM. Wrapping up hour number 1 here of the show. We got our picks coming in hour number 2, the Schubert Six. We've got only 5 picks to make here today. We got 3 points last night. We took the Rams +3. Didn't really love a lot of the games this weekend. I've learned to love them with the picks that I've made. I got there, but was really enticed by the Rams. Short week on the road, getting 3. I wasn't really bought into what the 49ers were selling after the way they played against the Bears and the Bills the previous 2 weeks. I think people put too much stock into the Bears game and not enough stock into their season up until that point in the way that they've played recently. And so felt like that was a nice way to start the weekend. And so we do start with a 1-0 record. Went 3-3 last week, 7-5 over our last 2 weeks. We look to build that resume as we head into the postseason. So we've got those picks coming up in hour number 2 of the program. I think we are all still searching about what has gone wrong with the Arizona Cardinals. And we are all trying to figure out how a team could start the year the way this team did, go on that run in the middle the way this team did, and then have these struggles right now the way this team has had. This winless since the bye, basically nuking your chances of making the playoffs. Everybody does some soul searching, and they're looking for answers. They're looking for a reason why this is happening. And I don't think I have all of the answers, but I think I can point to 2 things here that have plagued this team over the last 3 games that are easy things for this team to fix. There are big picture things that this team needs to fix. Reworking this defense, adding more complementary pieces to the offense, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. getting on the same page, right? There's all of this stuff. You can't fix that during the season. You can't fix that in between weeks. That's not something that after the Seahawks game, you can make some changes and now all of a sudden, boom, you're ready to go here for stretch run against the Patriots. It doesn't work like that, especially not this late into the game. And so a lot of that stuff is offseason, big picture, 2025 and beyond stuff. We're here and now in 2024 where there's not an E next to the Cardinals' name. They're still mathematically alive. Despite the chances being slim, despite us laying out what that path looked like and how much work they would have to do in order to get in there, they are still alive. And as long as they keep winning, it's going to be really hard for that E to go next to their name until the final week of the season. And so, to me, looking at this team, there are 2 easy things. There are 2 simple things that just jump off the page. Thing number 1, during the 4-game winning streak that this team had, it took them from 2-4 to 6-4, took them from irrelevant to leading the division, took them from are we going in the right direction to playoff bound. Kyler Murray in that 4-game stretch threw 1 interception. Since the bye week, he's thrown 4, including the 2 that we saw on Sunday that ended this team's game 1 quarter in. You got to limit the turnovers. You can't lose the little things. Can't lose the turnover battle. Can't do it. Team is not talented enough to overcome giving the opponent extra possessions. They're not talented enough to make up giving the Seattle Seahawks short field 2 straight times. You saw what the Seahawks did with the short field both times. They turned them into touchdowns. 1 turnover, 1 interception for Kyler during the 4-game winning streak. 4 since the bye week. That's it. That's the stat that you point to. The Seahawks game was doomed after the 2nd interception. That was it. That's where the game was lost. They were unable to recover from that. That's why we referred to it on Monday as a complete meltdown. But here's the other interesting stat. The first 10 games of this season, so 6-4, so pre-bye, Kyler Murray had been sacked 15 times. In the last 3 games, post-bye, remember, 15 times pre-bye, 8 times in the last 3 games post-bye. Now, that's not all on the offensive line. Kyler Murray maybe holding on to the ball too long, runs into some sacks. There are a bunch of different factors that come together. But I'm looking at 15 sacks in the first 10 games, 8 in the last 3. I don't need to break out the calculator and do the math to tell you that per game sack numbers allowed have drastically changed post-bye. Now, maybe we have the conversation of the decision to put Jonah Williams back in the lineup and mess with a good thing. We said at the time, you better be right by making that decision. The numbers don't necessarily bear out that that was the right decision. And I don't want to put it just on one player. And I don't want to just put it on the entire offensive line. But you're turning all over more during this 3-game losing streak than you were during the 4-game winning streak. Okay, that's a Captain Obvious moment. You're giving the opportunities. And you're also allowing way more sacks. 15 sacks over the 10 games is 1.5 sacks a game. On average. There are some where you're not giving up sacks at all. They're averaging 2.6 sacks allowed per game since then. There's almost an extra sack and a half per game being allowed by the Arizona Cardinals since the bye week. You can't protect your quarterback. He's under pressure, and he's not handling that pressure correctly. And then that leads us into the conversation of the November and December meltdowns and how Kyler does not handle pressure well. The big picture pressure of the magnitude of a game, and then there's the in-game pressure of pass rushers in his face. Both of those pressures he is not dealing with. So the answers are simple. You're playing a Patriots team that you should beat. You should beat them. If you are going to lose, if you are going to make it 0-4 since the bye, if you are going to make Monday start. See, this is the fun roll of the dice that we get to have, because there's a chance on Monday we're talking about another Suns loss. There's a chance on Monday we're talking about a Cardinals loss. It's up to them to change the narrative this weekend. These teams can change the narrative in a hurry and make Monday's show positive. Make Monday's show starting the week off strong instead of starting it off negative. If you want to beat the Patriots, don't let them build momentum with pressure and sacks, and don't give Drake May and company extra opportunities, because they're not, on paper, talent to talent. You are the better football team. You have the talent advantage going into this game. The way you lose that talent advantage is if you don't allow that talent to be on the field. And if Kyler's going to turn the ball over and you're going to give Drake May and company extra opportunities and just red zone chances after red zone chances and short field, and this is going to be a repeat of the Seahawks game, then yeah, we're going to come in here on Monday and talk about a team that's 0-4 since the bye week. And if you lose to the Patriots, I don't know where we go. I don't know where that train, the next stop is. I just don't. We might get detoured. We might be derailed. I truly don't know where we go if it is a loss on Sunday, because it shouldn't be a loss. These things, the interceptions and the sacks, I have proof this year that there is a stretch of time where this team can be good at that. There is a stretch during a 4-game winning streak where Kyler's not throwing interceptions. I have a stretch of 10 games, a larger sample size, where you're not allowing over 2 sacks a game, and you're not allowing that pressure. So I've seen it. I've seen them be able to do it. We're not suggesting things that we haven't seen this team do and we're asking them to do in week 15. We're asking them to get back to where they were pre-bye week, because this version is a shell of the team that we saw, even the 2-4 version, a shell of the team that we saw pre-bye that was 6-4. It's a shell. So those are the answers. The answers are really simple. Stop turning the ball over and deal with the pressure correctly. That's the offensive line. That's Kyler. That's the play calling. All of it. You do those 2 things, you beat a team like the New England Patriots. You take care of business. You get to 7-7, and you put the pressure on the Seahawks. You put the pressure on the Rams. You keep this division close. If you don't, I have a feeling on Monday, if that's not the case. We're going to be talking about more turnovers and sacks and this team continuing to fail in these big spots. All that big picture stuff we can't worry about right now. But what we can worry about is these things. That pre-bye, this team was not turning the ball over. Pre-bye, this team was not allowing sacks. Post-bye, they've been a disaster in both regards. That's how you allow yourself to lose to Seattle twice. That's how you allow yourselves to blow things in the fourth quarter against Minnesota. That's how. Hour number 1 of the program is in the books. We got picks to make in hour number 2. We've got some Suns conversation, Diamondbacks, leftovers, a whole lot more here on the Football Friday edition of the show. So hour number 1 in the books, hour number 2 right around the corner. It's the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Where should we start hour number 2 of the program? We welcome you back in the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. We've got you for one more hour here before it is the weekend. Get ready for the Cardinals. It's nice that we have a little bit of a break with ASU, that we can kind of just take a step back. We can breathe after the run that this team took us on the last couple of weeks of the season. Kansas State, BYU, U of A, Iowa State, just a run to get to being the 4 seed, getting that bye, playing in the Peach Bowl here in a couple of weeks. It's nice to just have that break. And now we can watch Clemson, Texas, no problem, and just, doesn't matter who wins. You're going to play the winner regardless, and so you just can sit back, relax, and enjoy that game as a true college football fan. I will say it is nice that on a Football Friday, there's less stress here on the microphone having to talk about that team. We can go in a bunch of different directions here to start hour number 2. We can get back into the Diamondbacks and talk about what free agents are still available and which ones the Diamondbacks might be in or not in on. Maybe that's an impromptu edition of Get Off the Fence. I kind of want to start with the Phoenix Suns. We're going to do the Schubert Six here, bottom of the hour. We will do that, and I'll give you the rest of the weekend slate. We've already got one in the bag with the Rams, so we're 1-0. We'll do the other 5 picks here at the bottom of the hour. I think I want to get back to the Phoenix Suns because I've been hard on them this week. I called them the modern-day SNL earlier in the week. I've been critical of where we're going with this team. And tonight, when they take on the Utah Jazz, Ryan Dunn's not on the injury report. Grayson Allen's not on the injury report. Yusuf Nurkic isn't on the injury report. There's just one guy that we're waiting to see. He's listed as probable, and that's Kevin Durant. But it looks like we are on pace. It looks like we are trending towards the direction of the Phoenix Suns being a fully healthy operation tonight when they take on the Utah Jazz. And so, what do we need to see? What is going to make us maybe not want to storm the gates the way we have been on the show the last couple of weeks? And I think that's tough because I know there's a pretty decent chance tonight that if everybody is healthy and this is fully operational tonight, that this is going to look like it did at the beginning of the season. This is going to look like what it looked like against the Lakers. It's going to be a team that can match up with anybody in the Western Conference and can dominate teams like the Utah Jazz. That's what it's going to look like if everybody's healthy because I've seen it. But is that enough for all of us? Is that enough for us to stand down? Is that enough for us to back off the criticism that this team has gotten? I've told you that if Kevin Durant's not playing, do something else with your time. Should be good. Because this team hasn't given you a reason to buy back in. And so here's what I want to see. One, I want to see us get through the game tonight and not have to come in here on Monday and talk about an injury report and talk about somebody being out for an extended period of time. That's what I would like, thing number one. I'd like them to look good in the game. I expect that. But the third thing that I want can't be accomplished in one game. It can't be accomplished in 2 games. It can't be accomplished in a week. The third thing that I need to see from this team is their play has to put them in a very obvious direction. They either have to be healthy and play well enough to be in the bucket of entertaining the idea of trading for Jimmy Butler. Although we yesterday said that we didn't think that was very possible. But if you play well enough and you start to make up ground in the Western Conference and you move up the standings, you might have a stronger appetite, a stronger willpower to try to get a move like that done. So you play well, you play winning basketball, you start stockpiling wins, you put yourself firmly into one camp. Or, and I'm not rooting for this per se, but if it's going to continue to be a bumpy road and guys are going to continue to miss time and they are not going to win games, clearly put yourself in the direction of, we got to talk about blowing it up. The worst place this team can be, you talk about in sports all the time, you hate to be in purgatory. You hate to be in the middle. You either want to be a championship contender or you want to be a rebuilding team. Being in the middle is hard because being in the middle comes with tough decisions. Are we on the decline of being a championship caliber team? Do we need to blow it up and start to rebuild? Where truly are we? Are we a couple of moves away here on the margins of being a contender? Being in the middle sucks. It's the worst place you can be as a franchise in any of the 4 professional sports. It's the worst place to be. The Phoenix Suns need to avoid that spot. They need to avoid being in the middle. Their play over the next month or so need to firmly put them in one camp. The next handful of games, you want to call it 20 games, 15 games, needs to firmly put them in making trades, continuing to build, or we got to talk. It's like in a relationship. Option A, get married, start a family, go down that path. Path B, it's not you, it's me. This isn't working out. That's the crossroads that the Phoenix Suns could find themselves in. Put yourself in one of the camps. Just do it. Yes, being in the camp of it's not you, it's me, we got to blow this up, is not what this season was supposed to be. This was supposed to be a season of redemption. This was supposed to be a season of living up to expectations, making a playoff run, being a championship caliber organization. That's what it was supposed to be. But by putting yourself definitively into that other camp, it can allow us to, I think, more softly and more easily have the conversation of, you got to make some trades. And Kevin Durant might be available at the trade deadline. And maybe extending Kevin Durant isn't the right thing to do. And maybe it is time to move on from Devin Booker. And then you can trade Bradley Beal. If you, over the next 10, 15, 20 games, really, seriously, just dumpster fire. Just don't play well. The injuries pop up. We're doing this conversation of when Kevin Durant's coming back, and the cycle repeats itself. Then you put yourself into that camp. If Kevin Durant is healthy, they have a 15, 20 game stretch where it looks like it did at the start of the year, and they are firmly into the other camp, fine. But what do we need to see from the Phoenix Suns? We need a clear direction. We need a clear North Star to point to. Either we are still competing for the Western Conference this year, or our visions are towards a bigger, brighter future. It has to be one or the other. Because if we get to the middle of January and we are doing the same radio segments that we have been doing for the last 2 weeks, you're going to get bored. I'm going to get bored. We're going to be tired of it. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be unwatchable. Pick a direction. Their play is going to dictate that. And honestly, it feels kind of easy. If Kevin Durant is healthy, you know what camp this team's probably going to fall into. If it is the other camp, if it is the conversations about blowing it up, it's because, unfortunately, more injuries plagued this team. More injuries popped up. Kevin Durant came back, played a couple games, sidelined. Bradley Beal back on the shelf. Devin Booker missing some time. Whatever the case may be. It is very clear how we get to both of these paths, and the worst thing about this Suns team is you can very easily see it going both ways. You can easily see this team going on a run like they did to start the year, but you can also easily see Kevin Durant limping off the floor in a game late in the second half and going, oh no, here we go again. You can see both of those scenarios. You can see both of those visions. That's what's in front of the Phoenix Suns for the next 15, 20 games, is solidifying what direction they're going to go in, solidifying what our topics of conversation are going to be surrounding this team. Are we talking about a Western Conference contender, or are we talking about a lottery team because they can't stay healthy? And then we could talk about Jimmy Butler. And then we could talk about trade packages for Kevin Durant or Devin Booker or getting Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause. We can have all of those conversations. We can't because right now this team finds themselves in the middle. Because we've been on both sides of this roller coaster ride already to start the year. The first 10 games of the season, you thought this team was finals bound. Since then, you thought this team was going to be watching some ping pong balls. We, this week, asked for the real Cardinals to stand up, right? We had this conversation. The real Suns need to emerge. The difference between the two is we know who the real Suns are based on who is in the lineup. It's pretty easy. And a lot of this team is down to a 36-year-old, oft-injured superstar. It's Kevin Durant's health. That's what it boils down to. So tonight, we start to answer that question. That is the lens to look at Suns basketball. The next 10 to 20 games will decide the direction of this team, which path they should go down. And so we are not going to ride the wave of each individual game result. We will react to injury news as it happens, but the North Star, the direction of this team, needs to be decided over the next 15 to 20 games. By the time we get to, let's say, the middle of January, and they have a tough stretch to end December. They play the Nuggets on Christmas. They have some really tough matchups to close out the month. And so they're getting Kevin Durant back tonight, it looks like. And they end the month Denver, Dallas, Golden State, Memphis. That's how they close out the year. But I think by the time we get to the middle of January, January 14th, when they take on the Hawks, they go on a nice East Coast swing the 14th through the 22nd. They play at Atlanta, at Washington, at Detroit, at Cleveland, at Brooklyn before returning home to take on Washington. It's going to be around that time where I think we're going to know a lot about this team. Coming up on the other side, some baseball. Who are the best free agents still available, and how likely is it that the Diamondbacks will be involved? That's next in the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the program, The Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060. We are just 12 minutes or so away from the Schubert Six, my picks for this week in the NFL. Trying to stay above 500. We are 7-5 over the last 2 weeks, 3-3 last week, 4-2 the week prior. We are already 1-0 this week after the Rams +3 last night. So my picks coming in about 12 or 13 minutes or so. I want to dive back into baseball. It appears as if we are getting close to another major trade in baseball, this time involving a National League team. Looks like the Cubs are close to getting Kyle Tucker from the Astros. Isaac Paredes going back as part of the package. And a huge, big-time offensive threat being moved into the National League and into the direct competition for the Arizona Diamondbacks, because let's face it, the Dodgers are going to be viewed as, for a long time, the favorites to win that division, and so the Diamondbacks are going to be viewed in that wild card race. The Brewers, I think, are going to be viewed as the favorites, so the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, all these teams, it's going to be a battle royale for the wild card in the National League, and the Cubs just got better today. They got one of the best young hitters in the game, lefty with a ton of pop, ton of power, and a guy that's going to hit free agency at the end of this year. And I mean, Juan Soto got $765 million. I don't think Kyle Tucker will get that much, but Kyle Tucker is going to get a lot of money this offseason when he becomes a free agent at the end of 2025. And now he's going to do so in a Cubs uniform, it looks like. Deal's not done yet, but you're seeing a lot of the major baseball reporters, John Heyman, Ken Rosenthal, all talking about how close this deal is to getting over the finish line. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the Yankees pivoting and trading for Devin Williams. They could probably start to sense that their overtures on offense weren't necessarily maybe working out the way that they wanted them to, and their pivot is always to acquire more pitching. And so they went out and got Devin Williams. And so Kyle Tucker on the board. What's interesting about this from the Cubs' perspective, and this does directly impact the Diamondbacks in a lot of ways, because they could be a direct trade partner, or indirectly where they trade this player to, if they do trade him, could impact the Diamondbacks. I wonder if this makes them more likely or less likely to trade Cody Bellinger. We talked about the Jordan Montgomery for Cody Bellinger swap that apparently was proposed by the Diamondbacks. Bob Nightingale had that a couple of days ago. I wonder if there's a stronger appetite to move Bellinger now that they've added Tucker, because that's the lefty bat that they can put in their lineup. And so they could maybe trade Bellinger to the Diamondbacks, or maybe to the Yankees, who are now in pursuit of another bat for that lineup. I tend to think it makes them more likely to trade Bellinger away if they land Tucker, but we'll see. Maybe they want to go for it, and maybe they want to have both of those bats in the lineup. I don't know. Part of me thinks that this now opens the door a little bit easier for the Cubs to make a move after acquiring a left-handed hitter, Kyle Tucker, to move another lefty in their lineup in Cody Bellinger, with a bunch of the teams that are interested in first baseman, Washington, the Mets perhaps, the Yankees, all those teams that were interested in Christian Walker might be interested in Cody Bellinger, who also provides some center field flexibility. He can play center, he can play first, left-handed hitting, could be a DH option, has some versatility, and teams kind of covet left-handed bats here. So I wonder if this opens the door. I think it does. That would be where my gut says right now, is that they are more likely, now that they have replaced that offense, they've brought somebody in-house for at least this season in Kyle Tucker. It probably allows them to more eagerly accept those phone calls for Cody Bellinger, and maybe take a smaller return than they were originally asking for, because they were able to flip for Kyle Tucker, and they can try to recoup at least some of the prospects that they gave up in the deal for Kyle Tucker. So a major move that has widespread implications for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I thought it would be a good thing to end this week, the winter meetings. You're starting to see some activity in the trade market. Let's reset a little bit. Let's look at who's available in free agency still left. And I have the Athletics big board here. And you know what? This feels like the perfect time. You know what? We're going to do it.
Nobody likes a fence sitter.
The question is, what choice?
So, Chris, can you pick a side?
Well, you don't really have a choice.
And get off the fence.
Okay.
Excellent.
We'll do that. We will do that. We will get off the fence here. A little impromptu edition. We haven't done this in a little bit. For those of you new here, get off the fence. I have to pick a side. Yay or nay. I cannot tell you, well, it depends. No. Yes or no. The question for us here today, the Diamondbacks, will they be interested in said free agent? I have the Athletics top 40 free agent list. We are not going to go through all the names. Maybe we'll go through everybody that is currently situated in the top 20. This does not mean I think the Diamondbacks will acquire these players. It's do I think they will be interested and seek out the services of these players? These players could sign elsewhere. Do I think they will be interested? We will start with Corbin Burns. No. No. This one is an easy one. Here's why. Diamondbacks have a lot of in-house pitching options as it is. I don't think they are comfortable at that price tag. I think if they were going to be comfortable at that price tag, it probably makes more sense to go to Zach Gallen to see if he would sign an extension ahead of time. And so I do not think that Corbin Burns fits their mold. Roki Sasaki, the next name up, yes. The Diamondbacks will be interested in Roki Sasaki. Why is he different than Corbin Burns? Well, first of all, he's a lot younger than Corbin Burns. Second of all, he's going to cost a lot less money than Corbin Burns. This is not a financial decision. Some of these players that we talk about here are going to be limited by the resources that the Diamondbacks have available to them. Roki Sasaki, the resources are not the problem. You have to sell him on the Arizona Diamondbacks. When you're talking to a free agent, when you're talking to Corbin Burns, not only do you have to sell him on your destination, but you also got to make the money work. What's the Jerry Maguire quote? Show me the money. That's what these players want. Show me the money, and it's got to be a place that I want to play. With Roki Sasaki, it's not about the money. There's a limit on what everybody can offer him. He's going to pick where he thinks is the best destination for him to develop as a 23-year-old starting pitcher who threw 111 innings last year. So no to Corbin Burns, yes to Roki Sasaki. Alex Bregman, this is a no, and it's a no because there's an established third baseman here in Eugenio Suarez, and the money is going to be too much. So no. Pete Alonso, this is going to surprise a lot of people. Yes. The reason why I think yes is because it doesn't appear as if Pete Alonso's market is what they thought it was going to be. And when you start to see that quote get thrown around, when you start to hear people talk about this market's not materializing the way the agent and the player thought. There aren't as many suitors. That opens the door. It kind of evens the playing field a little bit for teams like the Arizona Diamondbacks, and we've seen them do this. Nobody thought last offseason Jordan Montgomery was in the cards. Nobody thought Jordan Montgomery was a viable, realistic option for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He ended up getting there because as the offseason prolonged, and as he was left without offers that made sense to him, the Diamondbacks presented a situation that became a decent fallback option for him. I wonder if that could be the case for Pete Alonso. I wonder if that could be the case for the Arizona Diamondbacks, where they look at Pete Alonso and they say, you know what? This market hasn't materialized. You're not getting the offers you want from the Mets. You're not getting the offers you want from the Yankees or the Nationals or the Cubs. And by the way, I don't think the Cubs are going to be interested now after trading for Kyle Tucker. We could be your option. We'll give you a 2 or 3 year deal, opt-outs. Maybe you can re-hit the market in a couple of years, whatever the case may be. So yes, I think they would be interested. Anthony Santander, this is a no for me. And he fits a lot of what this team wants. Power hitter, hit 44 home runs. He's 30. If you signed him, he would only be your DH. Defensively, it's not there. He is not a good defensive outfielder. And so you would be bringing him in to be your DH, and I don't know if you're going to pay that type of money. Jack Flaherty, I think no, because I think he's going to command not Corbin Burns or Max Fried money, but more than they are going to be willing to oblige. Teoscar Hernandez is an interesting one. I'll say yes. I do think he is going to end up going back to the Dodgers, but he's probably going to sign a 1-year deal. And on a 1-year deal, the Diamondbacks might be willing to increase their budget a little bit beyond where they're talking about it being, because those are expiring deals. You can always trade those deals at the deadline if you're out of it, and they also fall off the payroll at the end of the year, so it's not a long-term commitment. So I will say yes there. I'll try to blast through the rest of these names. Sean Manaea, no. Christian Walker, yes, obviously. Ha-Sung Kim, shortstop, second base, third base. You know him from the Padres. The Diamondbacks could use a utility infielder. Kim's going to require too much in comparison to that. No. Jurickson Profar, this could be an interesting DH option. I'll say no, though. Gleyber Torres, perhaps. I'll say yes if it's the Jordan Montgomery situation. Tanner Scott, yes. what we talked about in hour number one, run creation, run prevention. Tanner Scott would be a part of the run prevention pivot that this team could make. So those are some of the names out there. That's according to The Athletic, the top names that are still out there. A little impromptu edition of Off the Fence, if I think the Diamondbacks could be interested in those players. Just my opinion on what I think this team needs, where I think this team's going to be able to spend, and kind of a reset of this market as we head into the next phase of the offseason. Coming up on the other side, we've got the Schubert Six. We've got 5 more plays to make. We are already 1-0. We've got 5 more plays to break down and discuss. We will do so next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. We appreciate you joining us here. We've got you till the top of the hour. Then you got Doug Gottlieb, Rich Eisen, Sports Zoo with Rooster, closing out the day. Got you covered here. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app so you can take us with you on the go. You don't always have to be listening in your car or on the website via the live stream. You can take us with you via the app. So make sure you download the KDUS 1060 app today. We had a good start last night. We had the Rams +3. They won the game outright. We don't get any more points for that, but it is 3 points in our back pocket. And so with that, let's do the rest of the Schubert Six. 3-3 last week, as we've mentioned. 7-5 overall over the last 2 weeks. A 1-0 start already, so you can say 8-5 in our last 13. Feeling really good about the stretch that we are on right now, and we hope to keep it going in a big way. We will start, and for those of you who are maybe new here, it is 6 plays that I have each and every week in the NFL season. I give them confidence picks. The 6-point play is the one that I'm the most confident in. The 1-point play, the one that I am the least confident in. And I think you understand why when we give out the explanation. So let's start with the 1-point play. We did this last week. We had the same philosophy last week, and it burned us. We lost our 1-point play with this philosophy. But I'm going to go to it again. I'm going to go to the well again because I believe so strongly in this result. But it's such a big number that it has to be the 1-point play. And I teased earlier when we did the NFL look ahead, I said I have some part of the Ravens-Giants game in the Schubert Six. It is one of the plays. Well, it is here as the 1-point play, and I think you can see where I'm going with this. As my 1-point play, I am taking Baltimore minus the 16 against the Giants. It feels icky to do. It feels wrong. It almost feels like a loser already, and the game hasn't even kicked off yet. Because when the game starts, I'm going to need Baltimore to outscore the Giants by 3 touchdowns before I'm even in the lead of the game. Like, that is such an uphill battle, but this is Vegas's way of telling you they no longer believe in anything the Giants are doing. They don't believe in the quarterback. They don't believe in the coach. They don't believe in the defense. They don't believe in the effort. They don't believe that the New York Giants can put together a complete football game and that they are going to be absolutely dominated by the Baltimore Ravens. And I tend to agree with them. The pushback that you would have is the Ravens have yet to do that yet this season, and you would worry that the Ravens would play with their food a little bit and this game would be closer. I don't know, man. Baltimore is an extremely physical team, and I think the Giants are in a state right now where if you just muscle them around in the first quarter, they're just going to fold. I don't think they're going to walk out the way Campbell walked out last night on the 49ers, but they are going to emotionally walk out of this game. They're going to symbolically walk out of this game because I don't think the effort is going to be there. You lean on them early. You get out to a 14, 17 nothing lead early in this game. It's all she wrote. Tommy DeVito is not a good quarterback. It's a good story. I'm sure that's going to get people in the building, but they weren't good with Drew Lock. I mean, Drew Lock started the game last week 0 for his first 8. It was abysmal. That game against the Saints was abysmal. The only reason why the Giants covered in that game is because the Saints are terrible. So give me the Ravens to cover the 16. I could be a loser here and take Ravens money line. I could do that. I could be a coward. But that is not what we do here on the Schubert Six. If I'm going to mix stuff in, it's going to be player props or touchdowns. It's not going to be, I'm take this team on the money line. Could have done that with the Eagles last week. I would have had 1 point in my back pocket. No, 1 point, Ravens minus 16 against the Giants. Our 2-point play. I've got a team that has their quarterback situation up in the air. I've got a team that won a game last week that they should have ran away with, and they needed to make a special teams play late in order to win the football game. Yeah, they're mathematically alive. They're not playing like a team that's mathematically alive. And I have every reason to believe that the team on the other side is going to play with more energy, more effort, and they have way more on the line. So as our 2-point play this week, give me the Commanders minus 8 against the Saints. It's a big number. It's more than a touchdown. And you're taking a road favorite. So the environment is against us. You'd feel a lot better about Commanders minus 8 if it was at home, obviously. But I just look at this Commanders team at this point, and they suffered that blip on the radar. They had that stretch where you thought it was going to fall apart, and then they were able to get the train back on the tracks. Jaden Daniels, I think, is healthier than he was during that stretch. I think you could look at a lot of what happened during that run and say you played some better opponents and you also had an injury to your quarterback. It all kind of came together to form this perfect storm of events for you to struggle and to have everybody doubt you as a team. They got things back on track, And I think they continue to do that this week. And again, the Saints, I don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. Is it going to be Derek Carr? Is it going to be Jay Kaner? If it is Derek Carr, is it a compromised Derek Carr? It's a banged up Derek Carr. Washington, if they put some pressure early and they get after him, you might see Jay Kaner in this game. Give me the Commanders -8 against the Saints. We already have our 3 points in the bag. We took the Rams +3 last night. They won the game outright. That feels like a really nice way to start the weekend to get us 3 points out of a possible 21, and we are 1-0 to start the weekend. All right, now we get to the big boys, the 4, 5, and 6 point plays here for this weekend. This is really where we've been able to salvage our weeks. When we go 3-3, we normally hit 2 of these 3. So really, last week that was the case. We hit our 6 and our 4-pointer last week. That really helped us have a good 3-3 instead of a bad 3-3 where you're just getting the 1, 2, and 3 point plays. Our 4-point play. How about a team that is tied for the best record against the spread this season? They've played 13 games. They are 10-3 against the spread this season. They're home. They don't play the prettiest brand of football. It's kind of stressful at times, but they get the job done. I'll take as my 4-point play the Broncos -4 against the Colts. Would you have guessed that the Broncos are tied for the best record against the spread this season at 10-3? I don't know if you would have, but they are tied for the best record against the spread this season at 10-3. And I think that when you have a record like that, when you look at things like this, that just goes down to coaching and being able to coach and match up well against the teams that you're supposed to beat, and maybe the teams that you're not favored against, your underdogs. You have the coaching advantage to keep it close. So that's a credit to Sean Payton. He's got a rookie quarterback. He has a team that he came in, kind of dismantled a little bit. They turned things around here, and now they're in the mix for that one of those last spots in the AFC. And I think they have the coaching matchup in this game. I think they have the quarterback matchup in this game. Bo Nix playing a lot better than Anthony Richardson, although he's playing better as of late. I'll take the Broncos -4. They've been really good at covering against the spread, and they're home. I'll take them as my 4-point play. 5-point play, we've had some good run here lately with Monday night. Let's go to one of the Monday night games. How about betting against the team that is 0-6 on the road this season? Just overall, not against the spread, just overall, winless on the road this season, 0-6. How about a team that is 8-4-1 against the spread this season? One of the better records you will see in the NFL against the spread. The last time these two teams met, it was a fourth-quarter comeback that led to an overtime chaos result and a winner for the Minnesota Vikings. I'll take the Vikings -7 against the Bears. The last time these two teams played in Chicago, you remember how the Bears stormed back. They forced overtime. But it's also important to remember how that game started and how 3/4 of that game were going for the Vikings on the road. They were dominating the Chicago Bears. The Bears fired their coach since then. The Bears got blown out by the 49ers since then. The Bears have been beaten and just pummeled to a pulp the last couple of weeks. They're 0-6 on the road. I think this game looks more like the first 3 quarters, the first time these two teams met for all 4 quarters. I think what the Bears were able to do in the 4th quarter of this game is an outlier. I think the Vikings, what they did in the first 3 quarters, that is what this is going to look like at home. Give me the Vikings -7 against the Bears. And our 6-point play. This team has been extremely favorable to us when we've picked them. I would love to maybe run the numbers here at some point and see what our record is when betting this team either as a favorite or an underdog. Tennessee this season, the Titans, they have the worst record in the NFL against the spread, 2-11 against the spread. They're also 0-6 at home. Who do they face this week? They welcome in the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. This feels like the exact same spot we were in a week ago on Monday. The Bengals, 5.5-point favorites on the road. The difference, Titans are a lot worse than the Cowboys. So this number scares me in the sense of, what does Vegas know that I don't know? But this is the same number for a road team that, yeah, they had to escape with a victory, But the Titans are brutal at home. 0-6, looking for their first victory at home. They're 2-11 against the spread. Give me the Bengals -5.5 to continue. They've beaten up on bad teams this year. That's been what they've been able to do to not have a complete collapse. So we will take the Bengals -5.5 as our 6-point play. Let's recap for the social media. We will put this out on all of our social media channels. People seem to love this when we put it out there. So this is the recap for the social media audience. Our 1-point play, Ravens -16 against the Giants. The Ravens lean on the Giants early and make this a non-competitive football game. The Commanders -8 against the Saints. Don't know who's quarterbacking for the Saints. I don't think it matters. The Commanders are healthy, and they've bounced back in the right way. Our 3-pointer, we had the Rams +3, so 3 points in the bag. The Broncos, the best record in the NFL against the spread at 10-3. We'll take the -4 against the Colts. The Vikings -7 against the Bears. This looks more like the first 3 quarters when they played the Bears at Soldier Field. And our 6-point play, the Bengals -5.5 against the Titans. The Titans, the worst team in the NFL against the spread, 2-11. They have yet to win a game at home. The Bengals keep rolling, and they cover the 5.5 against the Titans. That is your Week 15 Schubert Six. On the other side, we wrap up this edition of the Lunch Break with the leftovers. We'll do it next. KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up this edition of the Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060. We appreciate you joining us all throughout the week. If you missed anything, you can always podcast the show. Just search the Lunch Break. You can also catch all of the videos on demand from the show. If you want to catch up via the video version of the show, you can do so on the YouTube KDUS AM 1060 over there. The deal between the Chicago Cubs and the Houston Astros for Kyle Tucker is complete. According to Jeff Passan of ESPN, the deal is done. So Kyle Tucker, superstar, left-handed hitting outfielder, is headed over to the Chicago Cubs in a move that is great for the Chicago Cubs. I'm not sure what Houston is doing. They clearly are, after their run of World Series appearances, championships, dominance of the American League West and the American League in general, seemingly are on the back nine of that run. Don't know if Alex Bregman will return. Obviously, Carlos Correa and George Springer aren't there anymore. Jose Altuve is on the back nine of his career. And you thought that Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, and this young group of players that they had would start the new cycle for them, and it feels like they are just going in a different direction. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what necessarily the plan is. I think they got an okay haul back. They got a decent-sized return. It's nothing overwhelmingly one-sided to where you say, oh, man, you couldn't turn that down if you're Houston. You probably should have extended Kyle Tucker. You didn't. And so here we are. Kyle Tucker is off to the Chicago Cubs. Not the only move that we have had today. The Yankees made a move earlier today. They got Devin Williams, closer from the Brewers, in exchange for Nestor Cortez, for Caleb Durbin, one of their prospects, and some cash. So the Yankees, who were interested in Kyle Tucker, were having those conversations, clearly couldn't meet the price that Houston was asking for. There was probably a bit of a tax as part of that deal because you're trading him inside the American League, whereas trading him to Chicago, you only have to play him maybe a couple times a year, and if you potentially met in the World Series, whereas if you traded him to the Yankees, you'd see him a little bit more often. You could see him in the postseason, so there was probably a higher premium to pay there. And you should have known that the Yankees were probably out on the Kyle Tucker front because they immediately traded for Devin Williams this morning. And so that should have been our warning sign of they were not getting the answer that they were looking for on that side. And so they have decided to pivot because they realized that they were not going to land a big bat. And so they went into run prevention mode. That's why they signed Max Fried after missing out on Juan Soto. And it's why after missing on Kyle Tucker, they landed Devin Williams. So it has been extremely active here today for Major League Baseball. But that is really all of the news that we have on the baseball front. We will keep an eye on if anybody else wants to do anything here over the next, 8 minutes or so that we are on the air. But that deal is done. And it is official that Kyle Tucker is going to be joining the Chicago Cubs from the Houston Astros. A lot of question marks about what they are doing in Houston. Very interested to see what Houston Talk Radio is talking about today and what their reaction is to it all. Getting back into Thursday Night Football, we mentioned the 3 points that we got from the Rams covering the 3. They won the game outright 12-6. But I think the big takeaway from this game isn't – it's rare for the result of the game to kind of be the back burner story. But the thing that everybody is focusing on is not the Rams getting to 8-6 and keeping themselves alive in the playoff race, but it is the decision by Devondre Campbell to not play in the game last night after injuries to Dre Greenlaw and D. Winters. He was asked, that being Devondre Campbell, to enter the game, and he declined that request to go into the game. Kyle Shanahan afterwards said that he didn't want to play football. And then after that decision, he strolled to the locker room. And after the game, the coaches, the players, they were red hot. Dre Greenlaw, it was his first game back since the Achilles injury, but he was dealing with some soreness, and that's why they turned to Campbell, and he said no. And the quotes after this game are tough. Shanahan, quote, "People notice, but when someone says that, you move on. That's somebody who doesn't want to play football. That's pretty simple. I think our team and myself, we know how we feel about that, so we don't need to talk about him anymore." I read to you George Kittle's quote in hour number 1, but I'll repeat it here for maybe those who didn't hear it or haven't seen this story. And I think George Kittle's quote is the biggest indicator that you have of how that room feels. Quote, "It's one person making a selfish decision. I've never been around anybody that's ever done that, and I hope I'm never around anybody who does that again," end quote. Sports, work, life. You pick partners. You pick teammates. Part of being a team, we can use this show as an example. If producer Dylan, and he's not going to do this, but if producer Dylan just all of a sudden decided, I'm done, I'm good, I'm done, and he just walked out, that would put us in a really difficult spot here on the show. Because I would then have to rush over from this studio to that studio, turn that microphone on, continue the show like nothing ever happened, and then I would need to then run the board from there while also doing the show. It would be a dumpster fire. Producer Dylan is my teammate in this endeavor. As part of me being in here with this microphone on, I put my trust in him to keep the show on schedule, to keep us going, to push all the buttons to make everything happen. I put trust into him. I put faith into him because I don't have that control over here. It's the same on a football field. You are putting faith and trust into a teammate to do his job as part of the bigger picture of what you are trying to do. So I've never played professional sports. I never played at an elite level, but I understand what it's like to be a part of a team. I understand what it's like to be dependent on for something, and I don't understand how Devondre Campbell ever expects to walk into a locker room or a job ever again. He's 31 years old. He could potentially play a couple more years in the league. Why on earth would you sign him if you were a team? Why would you do it? Because every single person in that locker room would wonder. It may not be a thought all the time. It may not be a thought every single week. But that thought is in the back of everybody's mind anywhere Devondre Campbell's going to go after this. Well, could he leave us? Can we trust him fully? In football, the teams that win, the teams that succeed, the teams that get to the end of the line and win a Super Bowl, the reason why they are able to do so is the sacrifices they made, and they galvanize as a group. They play as one collective. Why? They check their egos at the door. They work as a team. They hold each other accountable. They don't let other people down, and they work towards one common goal. Devondre Campbell last night wasn't working towards one common goal. He was in the interest of me. He was in the interest of I. That's who Devondre Campbell last night was working for, the Devondre Campbell Corporation. He was not working for the San Francisco 49ers. He was not working for the team last night. Disgusting, truly. Could you imagine if anybody on the Arizona Cardinals did that? We would destroy them on the show. Destroy them. Your teammates are putting their bodies on the line. Dre Greenlaw hadn't played coming back from the Achilles. He comes into the game. He's got some knee soreness. He comes out of the game. Your coach turns to you and asks you to go into the game. And you say no. You say, I'm good. You dressed for the game. So what you were trying to do was cash a game check and do absolutely no work. That's what you were trying to do last night. It's disgusting. And so I agree wholeheartedly with what George Kittle said after the game. How can you be on a team if Devondre Campbell is your teammate? You're not a team anymore. You're everybody else and Devondre Campbell. Nobody is going to trust him anymore. So I think last night, whether he meant to or not, Devondre Campbell ended his career. I don't think there's a team that's going to be interested in signing him. I don't think there's going to be a team that's going to be interested in opening up this can of worms. George Kittle pulled no punches last night in his comments after the game. Told it like it was. I don't want somebody like that on my team. And I can't blame George Kittle one bit. We work in a big building here. We got a lot of people. This whole building operates. All of the radio stations in this building operate because we are all working towards one common goal. To all be the best that we can be every single day. And we work together, and if we have a problem, we reach out to other people, and we all are trying to be the best radio station, the best radio company we can be. That is what we try to do. If one person just goes rogue and does their own thing, you can't push towards the common goal. And so it is rare that the result of a football game, because it would be a lot easier to talk about the death of the 49ers and how their season has crumbled around them and try to do the autopsy of what happened here and have the conversation of should they pay Brock Purdy and all of the stuff that's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks when it comes to this team. And on the flip side, you got a Rams team that got to 8-6. They're putting max pressure on the Seahawks. They're alive in the wild card hunt. They won a football game. They've won 2 in a row. They're playing good football. They're a team. We opened the show with this. I would not want to face them in the playoffs. I would be rooting for them to miss the playoffs if I was everybody else right now. That's a team that's getting hot at the right time. Would not want to face them. Instead of talking about all of those things, we're talking about a player who played 0 snaps in the game last night. Took himself out of action. And not only did he say no, not only did he say he wouldn't go into the game, he then just walked off the field. He just left. It's kind of like Antonio Brown. Taking off his jersey, his pads, leaving that game against the Jets. Haven't seen Antonio Brown play football since then. Because you can't trust those players to be teammates then. Devondre Campbell, Antonio Brown, whoever the player may be, whatever the case may be, you have a player who has quit on his team. You can't trust that person anymore. You can't trust that player anymore. You can't trust them to row the boat towards the common goal. You can't trust players who, listen, everybody is looking out for themselves and everybody's looking out for their careers and trying to make the most money, but there are sacrifices that you make for the greater good of the team. And you can't have players on your team that aren't willing to make those sacrifices. Devondre Campbell was one of those players, and he did it last night. I just can't imagine playing sports at the highest level and quitting on your team on a nationally televised game. I just can't do it. What a great week of shows. We appreciate you joining us here. Producer Dylan, thank you for everything that you do. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. We will see you on Monday to break it all down. See ya!